It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you this hour by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. The NFL Draft, by the way, is perfect for PropSwap. You can start PropSwapping all day long. Buy your tickets now. Sell them during the draft. We've got the draft. Andrew DiCecco from the Inside the Birds will join us in just a second. If you have draft questions for Andrew, you can start sending them in now. 609-403-0973. Or, of course, if you're watching the show live, you can post it in the chat section. Andrew DiCecco joins me now to take a look at the NFL Draft, which is less than 2 weeks away. And he joins me on the Boardwalk On Hotline. Andrew, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. Doing well. How's it going?
Doing good, man. A lot of people are excited for the draft. The questions keep flying in. We'll get to our listener questions throughout the segment as we've been doing here recently. 609-403-0973. If you have a question, leave it in the chat. I want to start off with this. During the Inside the Draft with Greg Cosell on the Inside the Birds platform, a lot of people keep asking me about Micah Parsons, and everybody just seems to kind of poo-poo it. It's not going to happen. Now, he kind of explained that Parsons is a natural fit here. So I want to get your opinion on Parsons, the fit at 12, and the fit for this Eagles defense if they took him.
Yeah, I mean, he is a natural fit. He's such an athletic talent, and he, like I've been saying, he fits, the mold of the modern NFL linebacker. So he's going to fit in a lot of systems. He's one of the premier talents in this draft, and certainly, far and away the best linebacker in this draft class. But I mean, just athletically, there's really no contest. I mean, the way that he can move, his lateral movement, his football acumen, his anticipation, his awareness, and just his ability to cover a myriad of offensive weapons. You don't usually see a second-level player with that kind of movement and athleticism.
Yeah, I know. In your opinion, the Eagles don't value that linebacker position, but is that a position that is now that should be valued more? Has the linebacker position evolved and changed to the point where it is more important in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, and you and I had a great conversation about this a few weeks ago. I think that the position now, because it's evolved, I think it's more important than it ever really has been. And when you're looking at the 12th overall pick, Mike, I mean, that could be the best value. That could very well end up being the best value. I mean, certainly him, J.C. Horn are starting players as a rookie. It's kind of how I envision them. I think they're that good, and I think that they can make an impact as a rookie. So, I mean, at 12, I still wouldn't rule that out. And this is a new regime. You can't necessarily kind of look at the old regime and say this is kind of just the Eagles' way, because now you got a whole new coaching staff in place, and now all of a sudden their emphasis could suddenly change. Jonathan Gannon could decide that he needs that dominant, versatile second-level player in order for his defense to be successful for the plans that he has. So, I mean, there's certain variables that you can't discount.
Everybody asked about Parsons, but is it a huge gap, or is there someone else that you like at linebacker? Maybe not at 12, but all right, there's a guy, he's at 22, he's at 25. Is there that second or third guy that interests you?
I mean, not necessarily at the back end of the first. I mean, like I said,
so you think there's only one first round draftable linebacker? Well,
no. I mean, Jeremiah from Notre Dame is certainly going to go in the first round. I like Baron Browning at the top of the second round as a better value versus trying to trade back up in the back end of the first and get a guy and get the Notre Dame linebacker. I don't necessarily know if that's the best move. I think Baron Browning can kind of give you a similar skill set, and in some ways, I think he's going to be I think he's more pro-ready and ready to step in right now and give the Eagles what they need.
Right. So, I mean, is this, because so many people think the Eagles need that linebacker, and if it's not the first round, is this a good draft to get one in? We've talked a little bit about second-round guys, Nick Barron, Browning, but is this a good draft that you can get one and be happy with that guy? Last year they took a guy in the third round. I don't feel like too many guys are happy with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they took a project, and by all accounts, I mean, at least in my eyes, I had him as Davion Taylor, that is, as a fifth-round pick. He just was not ready to play. Too much of a project, too much of a projection. When you had a team like the Eagles that desperately needed help at that second level, I mean, outside of Parsons and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I mean, you have Nick Bolton, you have Baron Browning, you have Jabril Cox, who I really like, who I think is going to kind of fall somewhere between 37 and 70. And you got Chaz Surratt later on past that. I mean, a little after that. I mean, there's going to be guys that you're going to be able to get. As far as getting guys that can step in and contribute day one, well, the list is certainly shorter. And I think that they're going to be in position to do so to get one of those premier talents, at 12 or even 37.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. I see your questions coming in, everybody. Keep them coming. As we get a little further along, we'll start to ask your questions for Andrew. If you want to ask a question on the text board, 609-403-0973. There's an interesting question from a listener based on our conversation, so I'll throw it in here. Was there no value of linebackers with the Eagles because of Schwartz, or is that an organizational philosophy?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because to me, I saw it more as an organizational philosophy, but now it's more so I feel like after seeing how the previous regime sort of ended and it kind of, combusted, so to speak, at the end, I think now they need to really look at this new coaching staff that's in place and really let them make their decisions, let them tell Howie, let the coaches communicate and say what they really need in order for them to be successful and run their respective units. And I think that's a healthy way to run an organization. And I think that's, if you look at around the NFL, that's how some of the better organizations in the NFL kind of operate.
All right, Andrew. So I guess the next question, a lot of people think Jonathan Gannon will run a cover 2. What's the linebacker's role there, and how does it differ from what Jim Schwartz asked his linebackers to do?
Well, I mean, if they're going to be they're going to be in a coverage role. I mean, that's really what the linebackers really are going to be doing in cover 2. But I mean, and there's going to be players like I outlined that are going to be able to step in and fill that role. It's just a matter of who you like. I mean, I personally feel like Jabril Cox would be a good pick between 37 and 70 to fit with that cover 2 style of defense.
All right. That's interesting because they did bring in Eric Wilson. We know that. And they also have Alex Singleton. Those two guys will presumably be the starters. TJ Edwards is a more run stuffer. Davion Taylor, the guy they drafted last year, you said you had him a little lower. Does he have a role at all in your view this year?
Davion Taylor, to me, I think he's going to be more of a pass coverage linebacker, but sub packages possibly, but I think he's going to be more of a, special teams maven. I still don't know where he's at as far as his development. I mean, when he was drafted, to me, he was at least 2 years away from seeing the field and making a significant contribution. So this is a big offseason for him, obviously. He didn't have a lot of football experience, but the athleticism is apparent. Now, he needs to get a little bit bigger, develop his play strength a little bit, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this new coaching staff sort of takes his innate athleticism and kind of hones that and refines that and makes him an NFL player that can, contribute on Sundays. All
right. Got some questions coming in for Andrew. We will start to ask him some of the questions from you guys out there. Frank wants to know, do you think the Eagles, in your opinion, are better off moving up, down, or staying where they are?
Well, I mean, if you kind of look at the way that the draft board could potentially shake out, and, I think that they're going to have their choice at 12 of possibly a starting linebacker and a Micah Parsons. You're going to get a top-flight offensive tackle possibly in Rashawn Slater. You're going to get my top corner will probably be available in J.C. Horn. I mean, he's a starting player from day one. They're in a decent spot at 12, you're still going to get a good player. I mean, there's also that outside shot that Jalen Waddle falls to 12. I mean, certainly if something unforeseen, like let's say a Kyle Pitts kind of tumbles a little bit further than they expected, or there's a player that they really have their eye on that they thought for sure would have been gone, but all of a sudden they're in striking distance. Well, then I think that becomes a possibility. You could see them sort of maybe possibly leapfrogging Dallas to 10, just from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah, that's, there's some murmurs today, Andrew, that the Giants might want to move out of the, might move out of the 11 spot there, and you wonder, if that's the case, because we keep kind of saying, well, the Eagles aren't going to be able to trade with those two teams in the division. Not that you would move up one spot and that you would flip spots there, but if the Giants get out and somebody moves up, would they essentially be moving up for a quarterback in your mind?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, at that point, you might be looking at the 5th overall quarterback. But I think you look at some of the teams that are there. I mean, I think the Patriots there at 15, they really need a young quarterback. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them maybe make a play to get someone like a Mac Jones, because I mean they have Cam Newton, who's a little long in the tooth. He really needs a bounce back year. You certainly don't want to bank on that. And Jarrett Stidham to me is nothing more than a second or third string quarterback at this level. So I mean they're a team that I would probably look for, and they're sitting at 15. They're within striking distance.
Yeah, I know. The whole quarterback situation. I was listening. Greeny was on, and by the way, Greeny's going to join me in about 20 minutes from now. But he was on today, and they had this really good conversation about how you have to let the draft come to you, but that you have to have multiple plans. You have to have a plan, but you have to have multiple plans because you never know what's coming to you in that spot, and you wonder what is the thing that would happen that would force the Eagles to maybe go divert from their original. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this starts happening, then I'm going to do this. Or if that starts happening, then I'm going to do that. There's so many things that are kind of in play here, because I got to imagine that they have their eyes that they think at number 12 that there's probably 3 or 4 guys that they really feel comfortable taking with at that 12 spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably, I for some reason, to me, the name Kwity Paye really stands out as somebody that I think has a better than average chance of getting selected by the Eagles. He kind of fits that mold to me, and they need to get younger at defensive end. They've always prioritized strengthening the trenches. And, him, I think Slater would certainly be a choice. J.C. Horn would be a choice. Possibly a Waddle. I mean, I think that they're going to have their choice between 4 or 5 different players. But like you said, the draft, you have to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, because you have to prepare for the unexpected. And there's certain scenarios that unfold every year where a player is not taken where you expected him to go, and all of a sudden you have the ammo to move up, and you're like, you know what, we would have been happy taking those guys, but we didn't expect him to be here, so let's go get him. Yeah,
I think too. On your point is that plan A, plan B, plan C, and that you're also getting calls in the middle of it, for plan D, E, and F.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's a very fluid process, and you're constantly. You have to be able to adjust on the fly because there's just a lot going on, and everybody has to be on the same page, which hasn't been the case in the past years. So hopefully they kind of learn from their mistakes and get everybody on board, and they know exactly which direction they're going to go depending on how it starts to shake out.
All right, here's a question from Bill. He wants to know, Andrew, who's the top pass edge rusher, and if the Eagles drafted him at 12, would that be too high?
Hey, Bill. I mean, that's a good question. And like I said last week, that this is one of the first drafts that I can recall that there hasn't been a top, a clear-cut top edge rusher. I mean, in my opinion, I think Jason Oweh from Penn State's up there. Kwity Paye is up there. It might come down to preference. I mean, I think looking what Jason Oweh did, I think he would be the top guy in my opinion. I think, and to answer your question, I think 12 might be a little high.
So any of the edge rushers, including Kwity Paye?
I mean, I think Kwity Paye is more of a top 15 guy. I think 12 might be a little rich considering who else might be available at that time. I mean, I don't know if Kwity Paye is going to be. I mean, you want to draft a day one starter at 12 if you're a team like the Eagles that has a lot of issues and deficiencies everywhere. And Kwity Paye is a rotational defensive end on the Eagles if they take him at 12.
Hey, let me get your opinion on this. When the Eagles were at 6, you and I talked a lot about Penei Sewell if he was there.
Mm-hmm.
If Slater's there at 12 and, Horn and Surtain are not there, one of the three receivers are not there, you like Slater at 12?
I like the player, but he's not in the same stratosphere as Penei Sewell, who would be you're gonna take him at 6 and you're gonna plug him in. You're gonna find a spot for him and he's gonna start and produce for you right away. Slater would be it would be a very important pick for me because I still think that they have issues on the offensive line, but he's not going to be someone that I think you won't really see that pay off until the second season.
All right, a couple more. We got some more questions here for Andrew DiCecco. If you have a question you want me to try to fit in before the end of the conversation, you can text 609-403-0973 or leave it over there in the chat, and I will get to it. Andrew, give me a couple of receivers. This is from Steve, who's watching the show, and he wants to know a couple of receivers that you like maybe in round number 2.
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, Terrace Marshall from LSU all day. I mean, I think he'd be an ideal pick at 37 from a size, speed perspective, and he gives you that X that can go up and come up with those contested catches and be a factor in the red zone. And he's way more athletic than J. Arcega-Whiteside. You also look a little bit further down, Diami Brown from North Carolina. You really like his vertical speed. Would like to see him become a little bit more physical. At the catch point, you worry about his route running a little bit. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot at North Carolina. There wasn't a whole lot of diversity in his route tree. So, but I mean, I think if you get him in that with the Eagles, with that support system with Fatullo and Sirianni and Aaron Moorhead, I think he'd be just fine.
Yeah,
those are two guys that I would look at in that area.
Yeah, let me. How deep do you think the receivers go? Like they have 2 third-round picks. Do you say, hey, you can get guys in the 3rd round, or does it start to taper off?
Yeah, I mean, Tylan Wallace is going to be there. Dwayne Eskridge is going to be there. Now, they're different types of receivers. They're not going to fit that Terrace Marshall role from LSU on the outside, that physicality. But I mean, when you look at Dwayne Eskridge, he's a 4.3 guy, a little smaller, but he's twitched up, very good route runner. Elusive in the open field, he's just a dynamic player. So it all depends on what you're looking for. I mean, one thing's for sure. I mean, I think they need to upgrade from Greg Ward in the slot, get a more explosive player there. And should they go that route, a guy like Dwayne Eskridge would be good. Jalen Darden on day 3 would be another guy you could look at. So I mean, there's a lot. It's very deep in slot receivers.
All right, this one is from Ted, and this is an interesting question. If the Eagles don't take a corner in round 1, are there any that you like in round 2? Yeah,
I like Eric Stokes a lot. I think that he's the fastest corner in the draft, but I also think that he has, he's got the length, he's got the ball skills. I mean, the one question that he had was he didn't have a lot of ball production in college. Well, he returned 2 interceptions for a touchdown last year, so he showed that he could be a big play corner, and I think he can match up with any type of receiver that you throw at him. When you compare him to Tyson Campbell, his counterpart at Georgia, I think he's more NFL ready and he has a more refined skill set. So, I mean, he's another guy that you can plug right in and he's going to step in and contribute.
Hey, I want to get also one position we haven't talked a lot about at all during any of our conversations, but it's an area that the Eagles have connected on and have drafted a lot. Fletcher Cox, Broderick Bunkley, they have gone interior defensive line. Is there a defensive tackle that is in the conversation at all?
This is actually one of the worst classes for defensive tackles. There's not a guy that I would take in the first round, I would say. I mean, there's someone who I like from Iowa, Davion Dixon. In the second round, you can look at a guy, the guy Levi. His last name is very difficult to pronounce, but from Washington. they're a little bit of the smaller pass rush mold, and I think that they're going to be somebody that can push the pocket and create havoc on the inside. So I mean, but after that, after you get to like past the third round, there's a huge drop off. If you look, on day 3, the top of day 3, I like Jalen Twyman, the DT from Pitt. Same thing, smaller guy, quicker on the inside, moves really well, can get after the quarterback. But I mean, this year it's very underwhelming in terms of interior talent. And next year is not much better.
So don't expect them to go off the grid, and because looking through all of their past drafts, they connect. Their best drafts have been offensive linemen and defensive linemen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think that Christian Barmore from Alabama is going to be a player he's a first round talent. Now, in the Eagles' case, taking him at 12, that would be an incredible reach in my opinion. But I mean, he'd be the guy that if there's going to be one that goes, he's going to be the one that goes. All right. Andrew DiCecco, we're getting closer. He'll be back on Thursday to answer more of your draft questions. Good stuff as always. And if we didn't get to your question, we'll get him in on Thursday's edition of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. Andrew, we'll talk then. Sounds good. Take care.